Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today, and I want you to stream us on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there, and I need those thumbs to go up. Thumbs up, so that you can let people know that you like the show. It'll help us algorithmically, too. We really need that help. I've been told. So let's do that. And the Santita Jackson and Friends page. The Santita Jackson and Friends page is the page I need you to go to because Santita Jackson is just a landing page and they continue to kick you all off. And then I bump into you in public and you say, "Why did you let me go? I didn't let you go." Facebook has rules. And so what they do is they limit the number of people you can have on the landing page, and they want everyone to go to a fan page. So would you please do that? Because they don't kick anyone off the fan page. But I'm losing like hundreds of people a month because they keep because you have a saturation point of 5,000 people, and I try to, even when I don't uh, accept, people get pushed off. I don't want that to happen to anyone. So please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page, become my friend there, but also go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. What a fabulous panel I have this morning. We have already had a tremendous time at the Rainbow Push Convention. Uh, we um, we heard from so many people, so many wonderful testimonies about Reverend Jackson and his work, but Reverend wants us to be focused on the work. As you know, Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. He's like, "Thank you, that's nice. Are you all registering people to vote? Thank you, that's nice. How are you going to get your issues on the platform, Ariel Gold, Fellowship of Reconciliation? What are we doing? Okay, do you know how to march? Do you know how to um, spot the provocateurs? Do you know how to handle them?" I mean, Dr. David Gibbs, I'm going to go to you first, but of course, Greg Palast set everybody on fire this weekend, Ariel Gold, because we saw the latest iteration of his movie that's going to premiere actually on September 13th, Vigilantes Inc. Many of you don't know that that is how the KKK rebranded themselves. They were no longer the KKK; they became Vigilantes Inc. But boy, I mean, every time you see the film, this documentary, it's funny, it's sad, it's a little outrageous like Greg is, walking to a woman's house who has all these guns, and he's like, "Oh, you know." So, so you're taking people's votes away. And this woman's looking at him, getting more and more hostile. I said, "Get out." Goodness gracious. But it's a tremendous movie. And when you see it, you will really understand what the fight to vote is about, Ariel. Because all these issues that we are marching about, they can be voted on. They are voted on. We're the ones who decide how our budget is structured. We're the ones who make that decision, but you have to vote about it. You can't be silent. And you cannot allow yourself to be silenced by hopelessness. So everybody, please do me a favor. Like and share the show. Like and share the show. How you doing, Robert? Shalom. Second hour of the show. I love your greetings. I just love them. Lorraine Dunkley, hey, my Barbie. She and her husband like the most gorgeous people in the world, and they produce gorgeous children. Robert Williams, I'm so glad that you're with us. And everybody, like and share the show. Matthew Hall, I love you. Like the show today. I love Matt. I love him. One of my heroes. So we got a lot to talk about today. Oh, while we were at the Rainbow Push Convention, um, what kind of wound that down, and we're going to be meeting at Rainbow Push throughout the week. Even as people are at the DNC, as people are marching, Ariel Gold, everybody's going to be at Push too, because we need a home. We need a place where we can land, right? Because the marches started on Sunday and they're beginning in earnest. I mean, and they're really being amped up, if you will, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So this is going to be a very, very exciting and interesting time. That having been said, The Nation magazine, the preeminent, the eldest, the oldest progressive magazine in the United States, endorsed Reverend Jackson in 1988. That opened the floodgates for white liberal media to embrace him. It was a big, 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 big deal for the Nation magazine to come out and endorse Reverend Jackson. And so they honored him. So they acknowledged the 40th anniversary of his presidential run. And it was wonderful to see their publisher, Katrina Vanden Heuvel, and of course, our John Nichols, who's their national correspondent. And this really all of the people from the nation coming together and to really talk about Reverend Jackson and just this historic run and how we're living today, all of the issues that he pushed for, that he fought for, they're at the center of the party now. You wouldn't have Barack Obama, you would not have Kamala Harris, but you wouldn't have Bernie Sanders without Jesse Jackson. Do not forget what and Bernie Sanders said this, what he did, and he was there last night. He said, you don't know what he did for white progressives. He put us on the map. This was not just about breaking, the color barrier. It was about breaking not the phenotype, it's about philosophy. It's about a true direction. Where's the country going to go? Where do we want the world to go? So we got a lot to talk about today because one of the things I think that was highlighted for us, Ariel, was just how momentous those campaigns were. Just what they meant to us, Greg Palast, what they continue to mean, how they resonate with us. And at the center of that, Daryl Jones, is the vote. Reverend and Barbara Arnwine, and you could talk about the vote 365 days a year. And it's only now that we really see how important it is. I mean, because there is a movement afoot every single day to purge you from the voter rolls. And most of us have no idea that is happening. And so let us get right to it. I have got, of course, the author, he laughs every time I do this, but I think it's important for everybody to get The Revolt of the Rich. It says so much it speaks to why we're here. But I wanted you to talk about this moment in which we find ourselves. And if you could, as an historian, help us to contextualize Reverend Jackson and his presidential runs, but even where we are in our politics, because it seems like there's just been a hard pivot since October 7th. The elephant in the room is now sitting at the table. Just a lot of things that you couldn't talk about. Now they're front and center. So, Dr. David Gibbs, professor of history at the University of Arizona, the author of the book, The Revolt of the Rich. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Get it, get it, get it, everybody. Dr. Gibbs.
Thank you, Santita. Yeah, I think that the effect of the historical significance of the Jackson campaign in '84, particularly in '88, was at a number of levels. I suppose one of the things that impresses me the most, since I'm interested in class and economics, is his campaign in '88 was very innovative at the level of social class. He, really put together kind of a working class coalition that was multiracial that we really hadn't seen since the '40s. He went to rural areas in the Middle West that had been devastated in the '80s by the farm crisis and sort of mobilized mostly white farmers behind kind of an economic message that really resonated quite well and elicited a lot of support from a lot of people who I assume normally would not have been thought of as potential progressives, but were on the issues that Jackson was raising. This is something that I see as a very big inspiration to a number of things. I mean, obviously, you have, of course, the Black Lives Matter movement, you have the Occupy movement, but as you noted, the Bernie Sanders campaign I see as drawing a great deal from Reverend Jackson's 1988 campaign. And, that really has been a real challenge for the progressive left is the working class in the United States, and particularly building a multiracial working class coalition, which has been, challenged at every level by all the very well-known racial tensions among working class people. And Jackson was able to bridge that to a significant degree with considerable success in '88. And so that's something that I particularly noted as a really rather remarkable accomplishment of his campaign. There is something that has bothered me very much about the American left since the 70s up to this present day is there's a significant element, I have to be frank, of elitism to it. That if you look at the people who back the left, polls show this very clearly. It is mostly people with advanced degrees and high incomes. And we really do need to transcend that, if for no other reason that there aren't enough people with advanced degrees and high incomes to build a really large coalition of the sort that you really need to get anything accomplished in this country. And so we need a kind of working class coalition. And, um, Reverend Jackson, I think, did show us one way this can be done. Um, so, I would see this as really a very path breaking event in 1988, one that really should be remembered as a major turning point for the progressive movement in the United States. May I ask you, do you want me to comment upon the DNC and Kamala Harris?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All of that. All
Um,
of that. I mean, because to me, it's all one bundle. Because one of the things that,
yeah,
as we've been discussing over the past weekend, was how as you talk about the revolt of the rich and really the pushback against civil rights gains and these really working class gains from the 50s and 60s. We've also seen we're seeing that which Reverend Jackson and the Rainbow Coalition fought for. That's coming to fruition now. But
yes, it
I
is.
think we're touching the surface of it because we only look at the color. No one looks at class.
That's right.
I mean, no one looks at war and peace. I mean, these are the
Yeah,
things no one was talking about the protection of the vote and the unfairness of the voting process, of the nominating process, all of that. I mean, there were so many layers to what Reverend Jackson was talking about.
yes. Well, I suppose another angle, of course, that he put on the table that was really very innovative was the Israel-Palestine issue. That the United States policy, the whole culture of political discussion, the media, everything, was so oriented basically to ignoring what the Palestinians are going through and seeing this in completely asymmetrical terms in terms of looking at it through the lens of Israeli policy. And Reverend Jackson insisted that was not an adequate lens. We had to take into account the legitimate needs of the Palestinian people. He took a lot of flack from that. He took a lot of heat from that. I'm sure you remember that very well, Santita. And we're seeing now the evolution of that issue right now playing out very likely in the streets of Chicago. We're going to see counter demonstrations against the Democratic Party's support for unconditional support for what Israel, the terrible, horrific things Israel is doing in Gaza at this time. And there is a split in the Democratic Party that I think is going to be very difficult to be papered over. Um, that is a source of embarrassment and should be a source of embarrassment to the party. Um, and this is. I'm sure that the DNC would like to basically have the demonstrators go away and just basically say that defeating Donald Trump is so important, we should ignore the whole Gaza issue altogether. But I suppose what the demonstrators are saying, and I think they have a very legitimate point here, is that the issue of Gaza, the humanitarian, the moral issue of Gaza is so important, it cannot and should not go away. And that also is something, as I said, that was pioneered in 1988 by Reverend Jackson. That was really the first big opening we've had domestically in terms of open discussion of the Israel-Palestine issue. It's amazing that U.S. policy itself has not changed over 35 years. The American public itself is paying a heavy price for this, that our security is being compromised by our uncompromising, unconditional support for Israel. It's affected living standards and that so much money has been diverted from domestic programs into things like U.S. support for Israel, arming Israel, the whole military industrial complex that stands behind it. And so, this is an issue that really is not going to go away for the Democrats. And, I think the demonstrators, at least some of them, are taking the view that if this hurts the Democrats, so be it. This issue is just too important to let it expire. Um, so this is something that the Democrats are going to have to grapple with if they like it or not.
Mm. I mean, Ariel Gold, what say you? I mean, because there's a lot here that he put out there. Um,
I want to push back at if this hurts the Democrats, so be it, because I want a president, an administration that I can protest. And I'm voting for an administration that I can protest on this issue in particular. Um, we can't protest Donald Trump. I mean, we can, but we can bang on the walls of the castle, but it's like banging our heads against a wall. And a Harris Walz administration, we can protest. And by protest, I mean push. I mean, push to get the policies that we need, that we want. And so, deep respect to everyone protesting outside the DNC right now, because the goal of that, I hope, at least my my input on the goal, sorry, is to push, right? To push for policy change, but at the same time, this is who we want elected, and we want them elected because we want this war to stop, and we have to recognize that Kamala can't stop this war at this time. Vice President really has virtually no power. She can't come out for an arms embargo currently, right? She can't call for the bombs to stop. She's part of the Biden administration, but she can name that her administration will stop supplying those weapons. And she can talk about a ceasefire and what can get that accomplished. And we need that to happen from the DNC. We need the DNC to take this issue seriously and to put forth the policy. This is the first time ever that there's going to be, and it's today at the McCormick Center, a panel of Palestinians. Layla Al-Abed from Uncommitted, a Palestinian doctor who was just in Gaza, and that is phenomenal. And it's thanks to this really hard work, these protests. It's thanks to, God bless the Uncommitted movement, because they have done such an incredible job. And it's on the shoulders of Reverend Jackson that they're standing. And now we need the DNC to put policy behind it. The panel is fantastic, and now we need policy.
So what do you expect from the protests? Aria?
Well,
do you expect them to be large gatherings?
Yes, I expect them to be quite huge. The coalition March on the DNC is quite a large coalition, and they are gathering today. They have a stage and a whole setup, and I expect, and I should say, they're working on stopping the war, because that has to be front and center right now. But it's also an intersectional call for bodily integrity, trans rights, unions and labor rights, and really across the board a progressive platform. So I think they're going to be an incredible force, and I hope the DNC sees that and responds with policy, sees that and the work of Uncommitted, which we know they're seeing because they have now scheduled a panel, and puts forth policy.
Daryl Jones, your thoughts about all that we've seen this weekend? And we'll let you feed into Greg Palast and Vigilantes Inc., because it's, the centerpiece. Reverend Jackson has often said that the crown jewel of the civil rights movement was the Voting Rights Act. Because indeed there were 3 amendments to the Constitution once blacks were freed from slavery. Number 1, we had to be freed. Then you had to become a citizen. But tied to that was the vote, at least men's ability to vote. All women had to wait to the 20th Amendment for that. That having been said, all this is tied up together. And it seems that we're seeing all of this now. And I want to emphasize, hey, Abraham, down there in Venezuela, sending you so much love. Many people make a lot of the breaking of the color barrier, that Reverend, no Reverend, no Obama, no Kamala. But, I can't shake. Bernie Sanders said, without him, there's no me. This was really about pulling together different people from different backgrounds, the LGBTQ plus community. This was the first time these people had desks in campaigns. We brought all these people, he should I say, how shall I say, and the people who supported him, because everybody stepped out on a limb. Ariel and Greg Palast and Dr. David Gibbs. People stepped out on limbs. And when you said that you were part of the Jackson campaign, everybody took hits. Everybody, but then too, everybody was elevated too. So, Daryl Jones.
Well, Santita, good morning, and I hope you can hear me well. I have some internet connection issues. Uh, but I tell you, one of the biggest takeaways, I think, from what we've seen, we talk about the power of the vote, and I think that, and the impact of the vote, and certainly, Vigilante Inc., Greg's movie does just such a brilliant display and characterization and presentation of the power of the vote, the threat that the vote contained, as well as the actions that are being taken to try to suppress individuals, and particularly the community of color and Black voters throughout the country, but specifically in Georgia. And I take all of that and I wrap it all together. And one of the things that really came through to me during the Rainbow Push conference was not simply how Reverend Jackson organized and was able to push forward in his movement for the presidency, but more importantly, the extensions and what grew from what the organization produced, the fruit that it produced. To go from the 84 and the 88 election series to now having the person that's running this DNC being Minyan Moore, a product of Rainbow Push, having Bishop Daughtry, a product of the Rainbow Push, of the whole Reverend Jesse Jackson coalition, now being in charge of the DNC, being in charge of the Rules Committee. That's just an incredible tribute to the progress as well as the practicality and the impact of what the 84 and 88 campaigns put in place. But I tell you, Santita, I'll say it, and I'll say it again. When I listen and I hear Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders, talk about the impact that Reverend Jackson had 30 years ago, 40 years ago, with regards to his call for universal health care, and to see that make it to the forefront now, that he was that much ahead in the thought process and what it meant for the people, the working class folks throughout this country. I think that it's just an incredible impact. When it comes to voting rights, I don't think that the Voting Rights Act, the attack that's on the voting rights now, that's got to be front and center. That's got to be one of the questions that's raised. Will Vice President Harris, soon to be hopefully President Harris, will she take that step of having the executive order for voting rights? These are some of the issues that got to be on the table. I think that State Senator Nina Turner, when we were at the Progressive Democratic Association, the PDA, she put it best when she said, we need to be certain that a lot of the talk, a lot of the practice now becomes part of the policy. And I think that's where we are right now. And the voting rights is akin and attached to all of that, Santita.
Absolutely. Well, Greg Palast, before I come to you, I know Dr. Gibbs is going to have to leave us. Unfortunately, it always breaks my heart to have him go, but because I promised him 30 minutes and I want him to come back, Ariel. What should we be looking out for this week, Dr. Gibbs? And, what's our takeaways thus far?
Well, I think that again, the main issue is going to be Gaza, and the question is whether or not the Democrats will make any concessions to the demonstrators. I honestly am not terribly optimistic about this. The Democratic Party has just been so committed. The administration has been so committed to support for Israel. I don't really see anything in Harris's background to suggest she's going to make fundamental changes. I think you'll see some cosmetic changes, changes in style, changes in tone. I could be surprised, and I certainly hope I am surprised, but I doubt you'll see any fundamental change in the Democratic Party that's likely anytime soon, certainly not during the campaign. There has been a call for a ceasefire in Gaza the United States has been making, but it's a temporary ceasefire. I think what I've been hearing is that the proposal by Secretary of State Blinken has been a temporary ceasefire followed by release of all the hostages by Hamas, and Hamas isn't going to agree to that. They want a permanent ceasefire and withdrawal of Israeli forces. And so, this terrible war in Gaza is likely to continue, unfortunately. That's the most likely scenario.
Mm. Thank you so much. Well, all we can do is march and push.
Right.
And I
Yes.
think that if we march and we push, we can make a difference. We've seen that with who was put on the ticket, because it seems like the way was paid for Josh Shapiro, but for progressives saying absolutely not.
Mhm.
Keep on pushing. Everybody get the book, The Revolt of the Rich by Dr. David Gibbs. You don't want to miss it. Sending you so much love.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Santita. Bye, everybody.
Greg Palast, we've
Hey.
seen a lot over the past few days, but I tell you, we were all absolutely floored by your movie. And I've seen it before, but of course, this is another iteration. So you added some other elements, some other stories.
Yes.
And this is a whole lot. I mean, and particularly now, because, we're looking at, having a Black woman top the Democratic ticket. We're excited about that. We're excited about what all of that can mean in terms of policy and in terms of, what leadership looks like, feels like in this country. But at the same time, the vote is being attacked in ways that we're not acknowledging, that we don't even know.
Oh, indeed. So that's why I made this film. It's called, so to let people in on it, the film is called Vigilantes, Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen. And what's going on this year, like every, for those who know me, Greg Palast is an investigative reporter, from BBC, Guardian, my other films, Best Democracy Money Can Buy, if you've heard this stuff. I've been working on the issue of what we politely call vote suppression for the past 25 years. And what the fancy term vote suppression, which that's the New York Times wording, what it really means is shafting Black people out of their vote and other people of color and young people. That's what it's about. In America, we don't let everyone vote and we don't count all the votes. And I'm not talking about Trump stuff with there's, some machine somewhere stealing his votes. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the attack on the right to vote. So in particular, Vigilantes, Inc., as you said, Santita, as we point out in the film, that is the name that the Ku Klux Klan incorporated under in Georgia, Vigilantes, Inc. And the Republican, they had a plan when they incorporated back in 1946 to challenge every Black voter in the state of Georgia. And they were pretty successful and elected a Klan leader as governor. Well, this plan has come back. The Trump campaign and the Trump allies and the Maginauts have now taken up the Klan plan. And I'm not just throwing, I'm not kidding you. The Klan plan and the plan being used by their front groups is one group in particular, True the Vote out of Texas. And they challenged 2 years ago, they took this Klan plan out for a test drive. And what they did was, these are individuals, not the government, who are challenging people's rights to vote. That's old. It's old Jim Crow laws that are still on the books. But in Georgia, they made it even easier. They said one person can challenge an unlimited number of people. In others, I can say Santita Jackson shouldn't be allowed to vote in Chicago. I'm Greg Palast. I'm not the government, because I think she's not a legal voter. So dig this. The film opens up when I confront one woman in Georgia, this Republican operative who works for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I confronted her because she had personally challenged 32,000 voters in the Atlanta suburbs.
Stop.
Voters.
No, stop.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do you personally do that? Do they go through the list and say person by person by person? I mean, how do you do that?
Well, first of all, she didn't go person by person. She said she couldn't even print out the list because it was too long and expensive. So she sent an email with all the names in it. And she never even looked at the name. She got this name from this right-wing group out of Texas. And what they do is they basically pick out voters of color and they use any excuse to try to knock them off. Like, let's say, and for example, one of the victims there, and almost all the people that they challenge are Black and young. Almost every single one. And not one. We didn't find one illegal voter. I've always said, if you find an illegal voter, it's a felony crime, arrest them. But she charges 32,000 people who lose their vote, no matter whether they're guilty or not of anything. And she didn't check anything. So what happened is, for example, one of the people challenged, and there was another vigilante. There were 88 vigilantes in Georgia. One challenged 4,000 African-American soldiers out of Fort Benning, Georgia. 4,000 soldiers, including Major Gamaliel Turner, career officer. He's the Pentagon's chief of warfare of the future. So this guy's a top officer who was assigned to California because of the war in Ukraine. And he African American, and his vote was challenged. He lost his vote with the other 4,000 people. To get his vote back, he had to hire Washington attorney Mark Elias. He had to fly to Georgia from California. This cost a fortune. So his single vote was saved, but the other 4,000 soldiers lost their vote to these right-wing vigilantes. Now, here's the big danger. Here's the big danger. And by the way, when I confront these people, like as you mentioned, this woman was armed to the teeth. She had ammo and loaded guns everywhere. And my local Atlanta crew was so scared that they literally ran out of the house. So I had to have my guys used to combat situations, Zach Roberts, has been on your show, stay there to film because everyone was reasonably scared. I mean, these people are nuts and armed. So then on top of it, the guy that knocked off Major Turner, and you'll see this in the movie Vigilantes, which, by the way, while it'll have a Hollywood opening on September 6th, it's going out streaming for free on September 13. Well, the guy that challenged the Major and the 4,000 soldiers, this guy actually dresses like a vigilante with pearl-handled 6 guns, the cowboy hat, the whole thing. He plays vigilante Doc Holliday, and but he's not just some nutcase. Well, he may be a nutcase, but he is vice chairman of the Republican Party of Georgia. How about that? And but here's the big danger. It's not just Georgia, which is very, very important because it is the swing state, as we know. But the big danger is that we've gone from 88 vigilante self-appointed fraudulent vote hunters, 88 in Georgia, 40,000 people have signed up to be vigilantes with True the Vote. And in fact, they have already challenged, as we are speaking, it's concentrated in swing states, they have challenged already 851,000 voters. They're going to challenge 2 million altogether by Election Day. This is really serious, dangerous stuff. Mark Elias, who's just hired this week by Kamala Harris to take on vote suppression. That's a whole new thing for the Democratic Party, by the way, to actually take on the issue. So they hired Mark Elias, and he said, this is the number one issue. No one's talking about it except Greg Palast and the guys he's working with. So I want you to know the issue. Go to gregpalast.com. You can read all about it, gregpalast.com. And then on September 13th, we're going to release this film for free, and you can download this film at gregpalast.com for free September 13th. In fact, you go there now, sign up for my newsletter so you won't miss the free download. So, but this is the real new threat. Already, I got to emphasize, 851,000 people have already been challenged, and I'm not reading about it in the newspapers. And now Kamala Harris, bless her, and I'm not endorsing any candidates. I'm nonpartisan, but I do respect the fact that we have a candidate, Kamala Harris, who's actually hired someone to work to take on this issue. And, this is a refreshing change for the Democratic Party because Biden hid on the issue of vote suppression. So you talk about hiding on the issues. This is one he was hiding on. And Kamala, I think, understands completely she ain't going to win if vigilantes and not the voters make the choice of our president.
See, that's why I don't, Daryl, I mean, Ariel, I don't get that. You know you need the votes. You know suppression is going on. Let me start with you, Ariel. They don't do anything. APAC says we're putting $100 million into a fund. We're going to take out these progressives. I didn't see Democrats even put up $1. Like, what are you doing? I mean, what is this? It's just so self-defeating. Ariel.
Well, I think in some ways the Democratic Party is living decades ago, or at least a decade ago. Yes, AIPAC took out Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, but Ilhan Omar won her race easily and with a higher percentage than previously. And where I see, so I think there's a lot of fear around the pro Israel vote, but I don't think that's a reality anymore. We can look just at the Jewish vote, and over 70% of American Jews vote Democratic, and we vote on domestic issues. There's a rupture in Jewish American community. We are no longer all in line. Not that we ever were all in line, but those of us that oppose Israel's Zionist project and this genocide taking place in Gaza, the apartheid system, and the ongoing violations of Palestinian rights, we're not the fringe anymore. And there's been this real rupture, and we're going to watch it shake out in the coming years. So it's not the case now that in order to win elections, the Democratic Party has to just fall in line with AIPAC. And where I see
issue of votes, that I think the question is, where's the Democratic Party on vote suppression? And that's the refreshing change with Kamala Harris.
Sure, absolutely. And I think the Democratic Party is missing an opportunity, though, as well. I think there's actually common ground, and I swear I wake up every morning just baffled by this, how freeing the hostages is seen as in opposition to a ceasefire, when every Saturday in Tel Aviv,
can't take children's hostages. American people hate that, and we have to, on the left, we can't marginalize ourselves. We have to recognize that Donald Trump wanted to have a Muslim ban. And
right, bring the hostages and ceasefire. It's the same thing. And they're out in Tel Aviv every Saturday in the streets, the families of the hostages, well, every day, but huge crowds on Saturday, screaming ceasefire. They're screaming ceasefire to free the hostages. But does it matter if you want ceasefire to free the Israeli hostages, or you want ceasefire to stop the killing of babies? Because I consider that one in the same, right? I don't want people to be held captive in Gaza or in Israeli administrative detention. And I don't want women and children and mothers and fathers and grandparents to die. So it's all the same. And I think this separation of those issues is a missed opportunity for the Democrats. Embrace this. We want to free the hostages, and we so permanent ceasefire now. Stop the weapons.
Making Gaza the only issue. The problem, I'm saying we have some very big issues, and we're talking about the issue of vote suppression. If we don't stop vote suppression, you're going to get Muslim ban Trump. Okay,
absolutely.
So we have to focus here. And one of the things that I'm trying to get is to protect that vote. And if we become one note left wingers, and I'm in that progressive camp, but if we have one note and we're not looking at the issue of what's happening, the wide scale attack on voters of color in Georgia, Arizona, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, this is really serious stuff. And what we have to do is, and this has always been a problem, frankly, with the left. And I'm sorry that Dr. Gibbs isn't with us on the historical level. We tend to pick one topic, and the other side is working on 20 fronts. Mm-hmm. And we focus, we focus down on our issue du jour and forget that there's a lot of other topics on the table. And what I want to do is push I would like to see the Democratic Party, focus to the issue of how you protect the American voters. Because if we don't protect the vote, you can forget anything happening on Gaza. Like I say, you're going to have Mr. Muslim ban in office, and not, again, I'm not endorsing Kamala or versus Trump or anything like that. I'm saying that the voters should decide. But I think that it's like that topic, the topic of vote suppression is disappearing. And I'm very, very concerned about that.
But that is what is concerning, Daryl. I mean, because Daryl and Ariel, all these issues that are out here, I mean, and they're all so serious. Inflation is a very serious thing. It is. I don't want to talk about Donald Trump and whether he thinks he's better looking than Kamala or not. That is so silly. And at some point,
I think he was going to say that he's thinner too.
Yeah, but leave him alone. No weight jokes here. But you know what? But what's offensive to me is that, because I do TV, that they want to do segments on this. I'm like, are you serious? He's already said she's a beautiful woman. It's very clear. He's clear on that. And by every objective measure, she is. So that's not even the point. But what they don't want to talk about is a program to end poverty. What they don't want to talk about is all of these bombs that we are dropping. They don't want to talk about, while Boeing has planes dropping out the sky, we're still feeding them money for the military industrial complex. I mean, I don't, the thing is, I've got to push on that, because I'm like, wait a minute. And no one is giving us information that you gave us in the movie, that hundreds of thousands of people in a very short period of time have been purged from the voter rolls. We're so busy grinding it out from day to day, Daryl, that we miss that until you get to the polls and you go, wait a minute, my name's not where? It's not here? Well, no, maybe you can go home. Maybe I'm too far from home. Maybe I have to go to work. Maybe this was the only time in the past couple of months that I've been able to get over here to do this. And I had to do a whole lot of maneuvering in order to make this happen. There's just so much there's so much that is going on. I mean, it's hard to prioritize. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we should give up one for the other.
Can't hear you, Daryl.
Oh, Daryl, yes. Oh, I think he's got. Let me do this. Can you
hear me now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% on the prioritizing and what's on people's schedule, right? I mean, their immediate schedule, what they're immediately facing. And when we talk about protecting that right to vote and talking about purging voters, all the tactics that have been put in place to make it more difficult for voters to vote. In Georgia, they were limiting the number of hours for drop boxes and all this other stuff to make it more difficult. But one of the things that is true as well is that there's certain counties in Georgia where this is really aimed at. Cobb County, Fulton County. That's where they want to stop the voters from voting, because that's where the voters of color are concentrated. Well, what's really interesting, and the question is, will the Democratic Party get behind these counties and what they're now trying to implement? One of the things that the counties are doing to fight back with the challenges that are being put out there, because as Greg indicated, you have an unlimited number of challenges. Just a push of the button, you got 30,000 people that you've challenged, 5,000 people that you've challenged. One of the things that some of the election officials in Fulton, Cobb, and some of the other counties are now implementing is that they're going to charge the people that want to challenge the voters for each voter that they challenge. And that's going to hopefully have a deterring effect with regards to the numbers and just this blanket challenges to voters that are in Georgia. One of the questions will be, because it's going to be a challenge, it's going to be a legal challenge for it. I'm sure they've already started filing for it. And the Democratic Party is going to have to step up to the plate to work with these county officials that are now trying to get over this barrier that Greg so brilliantly laid out that now has been put in place. And that's not to talk about, and Santita, I constantly say it and say it and say it again. Everyone needs to go to vote.org well before they go to the voting booth. well before they get an absentee ballot or try to do anything else. Be certain that you're on, that, that you're registered to vote, that you haven't been purged, and where you are to go to vote, because they will move your polling place. And so you need to go to vote.org to be certain that you know where you're supposed to go, that you have a plan.
Because they closed them during COVID. And I'm like, did you reopen them? No.
Right. Right.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things that if you go to gregpalace.com, I didn't have it to film, but I have a little short video where I was in the last Georgia election, and in the suburbs, the white suburbs, you could literally walk up and vote, and they'd have coffee for you and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Making this
was on the show talking about that. He said no coffee, donuts. He said so that's why he goes to the affluent white areas. He said because I can get breakfast.
Yes, and then, but in Atlanta, I filmed a line of there must have been 700-800 people. The line was 3 hours long, and this is of course Atlanta, and they had a rule in Georgia that they cut the number of so that people have to stand in line because they cut the number of drop boxes in Atlanta by 75%, but then they increased the number of drop boxes in rural white areas so that you end up, people just can't drop off their ballot. In fact, on election day, you're not allowed to put a ballot in a drop box. So if you have a long line, you have your ballot in your hand. You cannot simply drop it off. That's, crazy. I live in California. I live in Hollywood. I go to the Hollywood Bowl and they have a big box and you can just drop in your ballot anytime. So this is the type of games that they play, and it's dangerous to our democracy. And like I say, I tend, if you have to prioritize something, if you don't have the vote, you don't have anything else. And that's what it comes down to. That's as Reverend Jackson was saying, if you don't have the vote, you don't have anything else. That's it. All our other rights are based on that, and we have to protect that. So if I sound like I'm focused on one thing, I am. None of the other issues from healthcare to Gaza are going to change at all unless we fix our system. Because remember, Biden won Georgia by less than 12,000 votes. And that was in part because they made it hard to vote. And they're making it harder. There's your 12,000 votes. And that I'm very, very concerned about. Arizona, think how close that last election was in 2020. 12,000 votes in Georgia, about 14,000, I think, in Arizona, like 10,000 in Nevada, and in Michigan, or was it Wisconsin, very close. Pennsylvania, few votes. Listen, any little new measure that impedes voting, which is happening in all these states, is going to change that election. And again, I'm not telling you to vote for, but I am telling you that we got to protect that vote.
Ariel, I'm sorry, Daryl, please.
And Greg, when you're talking about the Georgia, because we were down there with you with those people that were waiting in line 2 or 3 hours. And one of the things that we, along with Black Voters Matter and Georgia Coalition, were doing is that we're providing water and food for people that were waiting in those long lines. And as you recall, Secretary of State Rappersberger then issued a directive that anyone gave assistance, food, water, anyone to folks that were waiting in line, that he was going to have them arrested. And it subsequently was made into Georgia Bill 202. So that's a large part, and I agree with you, of what we've got to be looking for. But more importantly, or equally importantly, we also know that they have a tactic, and one of their tactics is that, as you indicated, they will close polling places, merge polling places, particularly in poor and Black communities, to force them to go to other polling places that they may not have transportation, be able to make it to those polling places. And then they'll reduce the number of voting machines that are in the polling places. That intentionally makes the line longer. So if you're trying to get to work, if you're trying to get to childcare, it creates issues. It should only take 15 minutes. That's the national average for a person to be able to get in and vote. So when we start hearing about these extended times, that's a concern. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that we've got to be certain that the Department of Justice is on hand for things that will be happening in this 2024 election. Because it's just right with everything that Vigilante points out, with everything that we've seen in Arizona, with the folks out there with their guns at polling drop boxes and things like that. We got to be certain that voters aren't intimidated about casting their ballots, and the Department of Justice is going to play a very crucial role in that, Santita.
Well, I'm hoping so, because and I saw this happen in 2008, and now fortunately, we won that one, right? But no one, it was so ironic that was a discussion that didn't come up in 2008 for Greg Palast. I said, and it seems like since we got a black president, we don't have that discussion anymore.
Right. They say, well, you got Obama, so shut up.
Well,
what else?
Thank you.
You got a day off on Martin Luther King's birthday. So what else do you want? It's like the answer is, are your my rights? And I tell you, and when a black person is told they can't vote, I was there. You'll see in the film Vigilantes Inc. a 92-year-old woman in a walker who had been voting at the same voting station. This is going to be her 50th year voting at the same place. And they said, you're purged. You're not on the rolls anymore. You don't live in Atlanta. That was Martin Luther King's cousin, 92 years old. I went to her house, so I know that she lives in Atlanta because it was only 3 blocks from the polling station. And this is a game, when her vote got canceled, that cancels my vote too. It cancels out my vote if they're taking away someone else's vote.
Why
we don't have.
Well, I mean, why do you say that? Because some people, I would say some white people don't feel that this conversation includes them. And I am like, wait a minute. Whenever you see that a chain is only strong as its weakest link, its most vulnerable link. When you're coming for me today, they're going to come for you tonight. I mean, that's what you're seeing with, so much of this grievance out here.
And what they've done is what Trump and his cronies have done. They've created this hysteria that black people especially cheat. They had this film, which we go into, and we do a response to the film 2000 Mules, which was launched by Trump at Mar-a-Lago. And that film is all about how the accusations that literally thousands of black men were taking $10 for every forged ballot that they could stuff into an illegal ballot that they could stuff into a drop box. They made it this idea that a black man is going to commit a felony crime for $10. And by the way, the Republicans opened every drop box in Atlanta, went through every ballot. Now, you have to understand, when you have a mail-in ballot, that's not a secret ballot. The ballot inside your vote is secret, but the envelope has a personal barcode, and that attaches to the name of a single voter. And they went through every single ballot cast, every one of those barcodes, everyone related to a voter that was a legal voter. They went through literally every single one of the drop box ballots, but still the accusation is still out there. Trump's still pushing it that black men are stuffing ballot boxes and drop boxes with forged ballots. It's insane.
How can we, I've got to wrap things up, and well, not permanently, because we're going to continue. No, because we're going to continue to have this discussion, because on September 13th, the newest version of Vigilantes Inc., which is going to be different than the version that you might have seen, that drops on September 13th, and we're looking to really push to get that film out.
Okay, I'll be back with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll be definitely back here, because we have to get people aware, and especially those people listening in Wisconsin. And I know that you have a lot of listeners and viewers in Wisconsin. That's going to be a vote suppression battleground. Please show up at those polls with every piece of ID you can get. Wisconsin has one advantage: the same-day registration. So if they say you're not on the voter rolls, they won't tell you this, but say, I'll re-register right now. So there's lots of things you can learn by going to gregpalast.com and how to protect your vote. And also Transformative Justice Coalition, which is fantastic. Daryl Jones is the chairman, and he wouldn't mislead you. He's going to give you the straight stuff. You'll get real good information.
Absolutely. Daryl, would you like to say anything before we go?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Santita and Greg. You're absolutely right. Folks, I'll say it again. Vote.org. Go there now and check on your status. If when you're at the voting place, you have an incident and they're trying to deny you your right to vote, be certain to not leave that polling place without voting. You want to vote. You can call 866 Our Vote to check on any of the information, any challenges or concerns that you have. Call, let folks know, let us know nationally what's going on so that we can try to assist you. And I'll leave it with this, Santita. It's so important that every vote not only be counted, be cast, but that every vote be counted. And that's going to be one of the next big challenges as well, because there's a big thing that's going on now with regards to the counting side of the vote. So there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to unfold, and we'll continue to unfold it here with you, Santita.
Well, don't forget to go to gregpalace.com and don't forget to tune in to Attorney Daryl Jones and Attorney Barbara Arnwine on their radio show on WOL every Tuesday from 12. It'll be on later on today by the time you listen to this. 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. They're going to be talking about that issue and so much more. There is so much going on in every issue that we have been discussing, every issue that we've been bringing forth. Well, they all pivot around the vote. You can vote about all of these issues. You can, but you gotta vote. You gotta get involved. And we're diminished when one person doesn't vote. We can't afford to have all of these people who are unregistered to vote and who are despairing of the system. Don't despair. I think I heard someone say, keep hope alive. We are winning every day. We're winning every single day. We are. That's why our opponents are pushing back so hard, because we're winning every single day. And they might be in your party. It doesn't matter. We're winning every single day. But we've got to protect this vote, because the initial idea in America was for nobody to vote unless you were a propertied white man. And somewhere in the back of the American mind, that's still there.
But
Really.
but there's always been that progress, and there's a long way to march. Isn't over.
That's
But
right.
we've
No,
marched.
I'm totally with you. I'm like, no,
Yeah. And that's
I'm
why
all
we
about
shouldn't
progress.
despair, because we have accomplished a lot, but we can't
Mhm.
stop.
That's right. You got to keep pushing. Victory is certain. Aloha continua. The struggle continues, but victory is certain only when you continue with the struggle, everybody. I love you, everybody. Keep looking at the DNC. I think this convention is going to be pretty and plenty exciting. But check out, I guess, all these alternative media sources so you can look at what's happening in these streets, not just in these suites. There's a lot that's going to be happening. And I have a feeling that social media is going to give you some really good coverage. Let's put it that way. I'm Santita Jackson, Greg Palace, gregpalace.com, everybody. We can't wait to see Vigilantes Inc. I can't wait to see this new iteration. I can't wait. Daryl Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition. I love you both. And I love all of my morning stars. I love you all, everybody. Like and share the show. Like and share, like and share, like and share. God bless you. Bye-bye.